Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar to learn about Burrell Behavioral Health, now Centerstone's breakthrough in eligibility automation with OpenBots. If you're late to the party and you're watching a recording in your car or on a walk, welcome to you as well. Today, we're interviewing Gabe Enz, the Vice President of Financial Services at Centerstone, and we'll be learning about his journey of taking on one of healthcare's simplest yet most expensive administrative problems. That is eligibility verification, also known as verification of benefits, also known as insurance verification. You can call it whatever you need. But what's happening today is that eligibility is widely viewed as a solved problem. Many folks believe that clearinghouses and EHRs have solved this problem, but denial data typically says otherwise. As many of you know, we're over 12% in the United States of average denials per provider, which is the highest of all time. And what's happening is that EHRs often only handle soft verification pulls, and clearinghouses still require a pretty significant level of data entry work. And the number one biggest issue with ineligibility is coordination of benefits, is simply the wrong insurance company often gets billed, and that leads to half of all eligibility denials. So that's what we're going to actually unpack today, what's happening and what real ROI looks like when you fix eligibility end to end. So let's introduce the panel. Let's start with Gabe Enz. So Gabe, I know you have been in the industry for a long time. You have a background within EHR companies. Now you're working for a behavioral health company, and you have a very strong background that has helped you not only stay innovative, but also have the subject matter expertise necessary to be able to lead automation projects. So tell us a little more about your background, Gabe.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here today and talk about what we've experienced here at Centerstone using AI technology and our eligibility. And so, yeah, I've been around for a bit. I started in RCM in 1992. So that was back. And for those of you who've been around that long, we used to print out the claims. Like when we were doing a billing run, we'd have this big dot metrics printer and close the lid, and the whole building would shake when we were printing out claims. So and I remember when I first started in the industry, they talked about being a paperless system, and that was before EHRs were even around. So I've seen this industry go through everything. It started with electronic remittance posting. So we adopted that, and everyone's like, I'm not sure if this is a good thing. And then it was electronic billing, and then it was the EHRs. In 2009, I was practice manager of a cardiology office, and we did our first EHR. And so, we've got it, 9 different EHRs, and we picked ours. And that was back in the day when the doctor would, dictate the notes, because we were, cardiology, which we did consults. So we did a consult letter on every visit, and then we would upload those tapes to the transcriber, and the transcriber would do them, and then we would print off the letters, and then we would pull the charts and attach the letter to the chart, put it on the doctor's desk. He would sign them, and then we would send them out and put it back in the chart and file it away. Like, oh my gosh, like how things have changed. So it really is, I've seen it all in this industry. So, the next big step here is the automation through, artificial intelligence. And we're really excited to be a part of that. So.
That's awesome. So much has changed, but I've also heard from a lot of our clients that so much has not changed. And a lot of the manual workflows have just never in any shape or form improved. But obviously things are now finally changing with automation. And it depends how hard you're attacking it. Rano, a little less important, but let's go to you as well, if you don't mind doing an intro of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Far less important than the panelist we have today. My name is Rano. I'm the Associate Director of Healthcare Automation Solutions at OpenBots. Just for the viewers who are here for the first time, as well as the audience, OpenBots is an AI platform which helps healthcare organizations to streamline the front end and back end of revenue cycle. And how can we not talk about accurate insurance eligibility when we have to discuss front end of revenue cycle? So yeah, really excited to be a part of this panel, and I'm more interested to ask Gabe Enz some of the questions I have for him today.
Absolutely. So before we get into the revenue cycle, we'll talk about one very important thing, and it's that Gabe Enz is an unconventional revenue cycle guy who does really fun stuff outside of healthcare billing. So let's talk about this. I mean, Gabe, you have an upcoming trip to the Maldives, which is fascinating, and you did a 210-mile trek across Iceland. Can you just tell us, first of all, in any way, shape, or form, does it relate to revenue cycle? Have you learned a lesson or two? And number three is just tell us a little bit more about it.
Oh, sure. It all relates to revenue cycle, and I could always get it back to it. But yeah, my colleagues here laugh that my idea of vacation is not that of theirs. Because when we talk about going to the Maldives, I'm not talking about going to a posh hotel with an umbrella. We're actually going out to an island where there's 400 inhabitants, and they're going to teach us. There's a group of 20 of us, and they're going to teach us how to survive on an uninhabited island. So we're going to learn how to spearfish, build shelter, desalinate water. All that sort of stuff. And then we're going to be dumped out on the island, an uninhabited island for 5 days, and need to rely on community to survive. And so it does relate back to revenue cycle, whereas we can't be an expert of everything. Like, right, we have to rely on the experts. Like some people are going to be better at spearfishing, and I'm kind of that geek guy. I'm all about the desalinating water. Got to figure out how to do that and stuff like that. And same thing happened in Iceland. So a very similar group. I'm a distance runner. And yeah, my team hates when I go out for a long run on the weekend because I come back with a stack of emails. Oh, I had an idea, like we could do that. Because all I do is I think when I'm running. And so we were, I ran across Iceland. It was 210-mile trek over 10 days. And so there's about 30 of us on there. And on our second day, we ran into a sandstorm. So we were up on the volcanic desert, and the winds were, no one had an odometer or whatever, but man, the winds were like 50 miles per hour. Like you couldn't hear the person that you were standing next to. And then all of a sudden the sand dusted up, and so we had the sandstorm. And so I was out there with 4 people in my immediate group, and just like with anything, we have to pull together who had what resources, who had an extra bandana to wrap around your nose, and then we walked in a single file like they do, and I call it the Peloton. We're doing the Peloton, like someone's breaking the wind, everyone's behind them, and then that person would drop off, and then we would come across another person, they would get in our group, and we really just really worked together. It was a great adventure, and it was a lot of fun. And but yeah, with anything, we all have resources that we have better access to, and talents that we have. And so I find that in Rev Cycle, we have to find our partners that are going to make us, better at what we do. And so, just 2 more weeks until I head off to the Maldives. And so anyhow, definitely looking forward to that. So.
I love that. So you're clearly not a basic guy. You do a lot of fun stuff that keeps your mind active. And once you start running, that brain's active, so you can think of a lot of ideas.
All the stuff. So yep.
Let's bring it back to rev cycle and eligibility. So Rano, in a second, get into eligibility. Before we do, you mentioned partners and partnerships that you develop, whether it's in healthcare, whether it's out in the Maldives or in Iceland, but I think it's a big part. So obviously there's been a major change in behavioral health. You can comment on it if you'd like, but I mean, obviously right now you're a part of the largest nonprofit behavioral health in the country, which is it's important because the point of all this is to have better access to patients, regardless of any automation we do to save money. And all that's great, but the point is patient-centric automation, and even things like preventing denials that affects a patient. Aside from the bottom line, that also affects a patient. So if you don't mind, tell us a little more about with this merger shift, like how that's going to scale, like how it's going to actually affect your clients, your patients, things of that nature.
Yeah, so it's a really exciting time for our organization. We are now under the Centerstone flag, and we are the largest behavioral health organization. And with that comes power to advocate for our clients, mostly on the clinical side. That allows now that we could, as our CEO will say, we can make noise and we can be heard. And so they're going to legislation and all that sort of stuff. And then from our side, it creates pressure on the rev cycle side, right? As we know, everything is changing. We're funded mostly by the government, by the federal government. And so who knows, how that will change in the next month, the next year, or whatever. And so, there's really pressure on the revenue cycle side to tighten up and to get every penny we can so we could serve all of our clients. And we serve clients, mostly in the rural areas. And, so what we do is really important. It really impacts people's lives. And so I feel on the revenue cycle side, we need to become as efficient as possible and just move to better client care for our clients. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it speaks volumes about the fact that why revenue cycle and insurance eligibility in particular is so important for a high volume outpatient setting like Centerstone. Um, Gabe Enz, if I can start off the insurance eligibility side of things by asking you this simple question, which is perhaps simple to me, not simple to every one of us, which is how did the eligibility workflow used to look like for your staff before automation? And currently, with automation running in the background, how does it look today and what has changed?
Yeah, great question, Renaud. So when I started here 4 years ago, we had about 12 people doing eligibility. It was a whole team. And so we would get a report of the client's visits, and they would go in and they would manually look up the client on the different payers' websites and try to determine, their eligibility. And then if clients would walk into our centers, we would get an email and we would have to go in and look. And so it was very manual, very cumbersome. It took a lot of people, and it was just a lot of data entry. And then once we found that information, then we had to enter it into our into our EHR system. And we do not have the EHR system we have does not have real-time eligibility checks. So we had to do everything outside of the system. So again, very manual process, a lot of folks, and still we were getting a ton of denials. And it's the last thing we want to have for our clients is to have to send them a statement saying that they owe us money. They're already stressed as it is by the services we provide, behavioral health services. So we don't want to add any stress to their lives. And so it was a very cumbersome process, a lot of emails, a lot of reports back and forth. And so now what we have is a more streamlined process that takes a lot less people. So we can move those people to other functionalities where they can apply their knowledge and things like that. And so what we have now is we have a bot pull down a set of reports of clients that have been seen in the past 30 days or have appointments in the next 30 days. And we're kind of service that not all of our clients have scheduled appointments. We're community-based, so we can't just rely on appointment data. So we rely on previous data and upcoming data. And then the robot can pull down the report for us, and then it analyzes the report. It matches it up against the state's, what we call the census, which is a list of the eligibility of our clients out with the state, because we're primarily looking here for Medicaid eligibility, because that is 90% of our payer is Medicaid. So we match it up against that report, and the bot does the process. We used to have a person that would pull the report and then match the report, and then now have to scan through the report. That would take them hours to do once we moved over to the report process, and it would take them hours to do. And then they would determine that we think, based on certain logic, that this client probably needs someone to look at. So the state is telling us that they have Medicaid and we don't have Medicaid in our system for that client, or we have Medicaid and the state doesn't have Medicaid, or different MCO. So there's like 9 different criteria that we look at. And so someone used to manually have to do that process. So we trained the bot to do that. It was a lot of logic and took a lot of time, and we had great engineers that were helping us, process engineers that were able to, because it was all logical, and as all long as it's logic, the bot can do it. So we train the bot now to not only pull down the report, but to go through and do that logic. And so what it does then is it identifies, it is going through 100,000 lines of data, and then it pulls out, maybe the 30 patients or 30 clients that it thinks, someone might need to look at. So then the bot gives that report to someone. Someone actually goes out to the state and verifies that, yes, they have coverage on this date. They lost coverage on that date. And then they put that information back into the spreadsheet, and then it goes back to the bot. And then what the bot does, which is just unbelievable, it blows my mind, that it will then go into our EHR and updates the client information. So it'll update our insurance information. So it'll term an insurance or it'll add an insurance based on what we put on that spreadsheet. So it's really phenomenal, and it all happens so fast. It really does. And we're always adding on to our processes. So we're in the middle of now that the bot has changed the information, we're training it to be able to go to the claim itself and then redirect the claim to the appropriate payer, which is just amazing. And so we're going through that logic right now. That's our latest development that we're doing. So process is much more efficient, and just takes a lot less people to do. And what we have found is that the bot never shows up sick or doesn't get bored doing it or doesn't get distracted by something else, because we had this process in place. And I would say, 2 out of 5 days it wasn't completed, for whatever reason. And so what really I've been most impressed about is that the bot just sits and does it all the time. So we're always getting that done, where people would get distracted, or literally it's a very boring process. So it is not good for humans to be doing that day in and day out. So that's kind of what our process looks now. So the bot does it. It takes one human about 2 hours at the most to go through what the bot has spit out for that day and then give it back to the bot. And so we've taken an 8-person process and got it down to about 2 hours.
That's quite a savings and turnaround time, if I may have to add on to it. I think, Gabe, and what you just outlined is once again going to show us that why it is so important for organizations in the first place to pick up a right candidate for automation. Like insurance eligibility, the way you explained it, like the mundane, repetitive, boring task that you shouldn't be letting 5 people or 10 people in your RCM team taking the responsibility of it. So I think it's so important to find the right candidate in the first place. But interestingly enough, Gabe Enz, if I can share a very quick story with you, we have been talking to a few more nonprofit healthcare organizations. One particular organization wants to automate the insurance eligibility process, and their mechanism of doing eligibility, what they call as a 48-hour report, is pretty similar to how your team does it. I think there is a little bit more nuance to it, which I'm certainly sure you're aware of, which is sometimes the patients can be enlisted or rather shortlisted for DMH or Department of Mental Health for the program they are going to get a service on. And that's another factor that they want us to add on top of the insurance eligibility check for Medicaid and for insurance. So once again, I think you brilliantly outlined that. It kind of reminds me about one thing that you mentioned to me perhaps 3 to 4 months back, and if I can frame that into a question for the audience out here, you did mention to me, like, Ronald, a automation system, a AI agent, or a clearinghouse can instantly run real-time eligibility checks, but only a smart automation system can stack up the guarantors of the patients in the exact order as required for their specific service line. For the audience today, Gabe Enz, can you elaborate this point and explain why it is so crucial for your organization?
Sure. Yeah, great question. So we are not out of the box, right? And most organizations will say that. I worked for an EHR for years and helped implement team or clients, and they're like, "Oh, we're different," and yeah, and some are more different than others, and really have just out of the box products don't work for them, and that's the situation we are in because we're in the state of Missouri and we build a Department of Mental Health. We have to do things in certain order. So one client, we just don't have like a client that has Blue Cross Blue Shield, right? So they'll have different forms of Medicaid based on the programs, the behavioral health programs they're in, whether it's a SUD, a substance use disorder, or community-based service or psychiatry. And so, they'll have one client can have up to 7 different guarantors, and those guarantors have to be in a certain order. So the claim will bill out to the correct guarantor. And we, for years, tried to get that to happen. And so I finally figured out a report. I pulled a report of all our clients that had been seen in the past year. And, it's logic. There is a certain order that those guarantors go in. Each guarantor has a specific order. And so we're able to use that. It's really an algorithm. And so we do that. So we ran that report and asked the team to try to do that. And again, I would say 1 out of 5 days they got through it. They just couldn't get through it. It was very cumbersome to pull the report. And then it was very mind numbing to go through. And we do, all kinds of formulas and stuff like that. So they won't have to looking through each line, but nonetheless, just to run the report, it was just overwhelming for them. And then they weren't able to get through it every day. And if those guarantors aren't in order, we'll end up sending a statement out to the client instead of to the state, because self-pay got up, above Medicaid. And so one would think that wouldn't happen, but it happens all the time. So we really wanted to prevent that. And so what we did is we taught the bot how to pull that report, and it scans every day over 230,000 lines. That report is 230,000 lines. It's looking back of all our clients the past year for our outpatient services, and then it's looking forward 30 days, and it pulls the client and all their guarantors, and then it'll bump it up against our main sheet, our ordering sheet that says this guarantor is order number 1 and this guarantor is order number 4. So it pulls in that data and then it sorts it. And now we have what the order it should be. And then the report shows what the order is. And then it does a, equals if statement that says, oh, they're out of order. And then it highlights the clients that need to be put in order. So not only does it then spit out the order that the clients need to be in, then the bot then goes in and goes into our system, into our EHR, and literally then changes the order. And I remember when we were first watching it, the engineer did it and demonstrated it to us. I mean, it took 10 seconds for it to reorder the guarantor, and it takes a human about a minute to do. It was just so fast. And then it moves on to the next one, and then it reorders. So what I have is complete confidence that at the end of the day, when the claims cut, those claims are cutting to the right guarantor, to the right insurance company. And our clients aren't getting bills for things that we should have billed to a different insurance company and all of that. So that was huge for us. And that thing just runs in the background. And that took us less than 60 days to get that operational. That was our first thing that we wanted to do. And so I look back at my notes. We started our kickoff call on March 21st of last year. And by May 9th, that bot was reordering the guarantors, and it's been doing it ever since, every day, ever since. It just does it. And so now we had, in fact, I work with the team, and they're like, oh, I'm not sure what order to put this guarantor. And I was like, oh, that's all right. The bot will fix it in the morning. So, and so it really it's been a game changer for us to know. And we have a lot less denials because we're now billing insurances in the right order. So that was big for us.
Well, Gabe Enz, one of the things that I often discuss with Gabriel is that an automation vendor or AI agent company or whatever you call it, they are successful. But one of the main drivers for getting the success is having a program manager, a good subject matter expert from the client side of things. By client, I mean the healthcare organization. So, I mean, glad and grateful that the partnership that we have has been successful, but a lot of credit goes to you and your team on how we have been able to get the expertise of RCM. So I just wanted to make that point. Gabe Enz, we often hear this question from our prospects that most of the work which AI agents do and automation do is great. And we know that you would have a direct connector to Availity, or you should be able to go into a state specific portal, run the eligibility check, and bring the information. But how can we move this information to our EMR? And now I know that you have been using Netsmart MyAvatar. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about the integration of OpenBots with Netsmart MyAvatar?
Sure, be happy to discuss that. So it really is amazing. When we first started to do this, I had no idea how this was going to work, right? I've never implemented AI technology, and I'm like, wow, this is just an unknown frontier. I've done other things, right? I've implemented EHRs, even back in the day, like we talked about, electronic payment posting, just had no idea how this was going to work. And so the team's been great, walking us through each process. And, we've really had to have integration with our entire system, like all our teams, IT, security, all those folks have been really important in the success of this. And so, it started out with, we getting credentials for the bot. So the bot has EHR credentials just like I do. They have their own set. So, and they have their own security settings. And then we gave it access to our shared drives, so it can access the reports on the folder. It could put reports on the folder. It has its own email address, so it emails us stuff. We email it back. It's phenomenal if you think about it. So it's just like another person working. And so and then we gave it access to the EHR. And I remember the first time we had the process engineer sat down with us to go through the process of reordering our insurances. And he said, act like I was on the call, and he was meeting with our supervisor, our manager who does this day in and day out. And he asked her, act as if I'm brand new. Like, we gave him the link to the EHR. How does he log in? What kind of things are they going to see when they log in? Like every 90 days, you have to reset your password. So they count it for that. So when we have updates, you have to hit Shift F7 to get the update. So it learned all the messages that we have, and, it logged in, and then we needed to find a client. So how do you find a client? Well, I type in the medical record number, and it's like, well, it turns out we type in like 6 digits, and it's really a 9-digit field. So if we backfill with zeros, like the robot will always get a full hit. And so it's things like that we never thought about. So it opens up a client, and then it goes into the insurance information area, and then every step that a human would do, it does. It clicks here, it clicks there, it does that. And if this happens, then do this. If not, do that. So all that is process documented out, and then we go through it. And then once we all agree on it, sign off on it, and then the engineer actually trains the bot on it, and then comes back to us and says, here, this is what the bot's doing. And you can literally watch it go into the system and click, 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 and it clicks at such a fast rate. It really does. I can't overemphasize the speed in which it works is really, really impressive. So that's kind of hope I answered your question, but that's kind of how it integrates into our system. It's become one of us, and it can access anything we allow it to access or not allow it to access. Our organization has chosen not to let it go out to certain websites and stuff like that because of security reasons, and that's fine. We've been able to adapt the processes to that, and so right now, that may change at some point, but right now it is solely working in our EHR and on our email and in our reports, and it's able to get everything that we need to have it done. So
I love that, Gabe. And we're having a lot of Q&A, but you're naturally answering a lot of those questions. So at the end, we'll ask some of the questions that you didn't already answer. But
okay.
it got me thinking, like, so I love Ronald's point around subject matter expertise. And you mentioned, for example, this process is so boring. So I was thinking in my head, I'm like, my toddler, you can teach him this process, and as a punishment, I can make him, instead of the bot doing it, my toddler can do the process. I'm kidding, it's a joke. what I think a key question here that people want to know, though, is around denials in AR. Like, what was the impact? Of course, what happens in these projects is that you typically know, but when you dive deeper under the hood, you start not only looking at the problem, but then the root causes of the problems. You might think it's one thing, then you recognize it's a completely different thing. But tell us a little more, like, what was the impact on denials? What was the impact on AR? Tell us a little, you can comment on that.
Sure. So our AR dropped significantly when we started this. And we were doing a lot of other projects as well, but we had over I think I'm going to say a 40% reduction in our receivable over 120 win days as part of this process and other processes that we had. And our denial rate dropped, I would say, at least by 20%, if not more. One of the things in our organization, we're a behavioral health organization, so we have repetitive clients. The clients come in, and so now we are catching them on the first visit instead of having 13 visits that got denied for it. And we do, our chief revenue officer has calculated that pretty much every denial that we get costs us about $50 to work, and then the delay in the cash and all that sort of stuff. So not only have we saved money in being able to reduce FTEs or move those FTEs to other tasks, we have less denials now, and we keep tweaking our process and getting better and better at it. And so it's huge. We used to open up our statusing reports and have all these eligibility denials, and we tracked the denials, and it was really interesting to see the bottom just drop off. There was about 300 or 400 a month, and now there's like 50 a month, and it just dropped off, and you can see it trending down on the spreadsheet. It was really kind of cool. So that has helped us, and that has helped us our bottom line and just moving the claims through faster.
That's awesome. I mean, those are phenomenal, pretty substantive metrics. And we did receive a question that's generally related to this. I mean, it's from Tim Pizanko. I'll ask it now, actually. So he said, question, how did you prioritize which data needed to be automated first to help streamline your processes? Like, why eligibility? Why did you start there? Where within eligibility, payer sequencing? Like, tell us a little more of where you started and why and how.
Yeah, that's a great question, because I remember we were in a meeting one day and we had pretty much come to a conclusion that we were going with OpenBots. And then the question came up, like, what are we doing first? And I'm like, oh, me. Like, I just jumped in. I took over. Like, nope, let's do it. Because I just had pain points, right? Like, this is just a pain. And we were using a lot of clients. But also I was able to convince everyone that some of this was simple. Like, our ordering of guarantors was a quick win. Like I said, we implemented that within 60 days, and that was huge. So that kind of helped stack our priorities. Like with everything, right? What's the biggest impact with the least effort? And so that's how we organized our stuff. So when we knew just eligibility, we were getting way too many eligibility denials, and we couldn't get help anywhere else. Our electronic health record does not have automated, real-time eligibility. So it became pretty clear that we were going to do that. And then, so we just did it in phases, and we broke it out into the multiple steps. So ordering the guarantors, then checking eligibility out on the state's website, and then things like that. And then simultaneously, we found other things in our system. So we have a very, I know we're talking about eligibility here, but we then did say, what other manual processes do we have? And one of our systems, we have a very manual payment posting system. And so we are now in the process of training the bot to post payments. And so, so we're doing that. And then we're looking at other things. We'll eventually go into, we have a very manual billing process where the team has to pull down the batches automatically. It's like, oh, we get the bot to do that. So that's how we prioritized. What was our major denials? We would have gone with authorizations if that was one of the things. We just don't have a lot of clients that need authorizations. We're not your normal, we bill Blue Cross Blue Shield. That's another big hit in any other organization. That's just any process that's just routine, mundane, is really where we need to infiltrate and utilize the bots. And so we're constantly looking ahead, what's next. So we got 3 or 4 projects in the pipeline that we're ready to continue to go on, and then we just keep refining and going as much as we can. So I look now, anytime I'm sitting with someone and they're showing me the task, my thought is, we could get a bot to do that. It's like, because I really want to utilize my team's expertise in subject use matter, calling an insurance company and determining, are doing a reconsideration, or, really understanding like, oh no, that modifier combination is not right. So let me open a ticket with our EHR so we could put in the right modifiers. And that's the kind of thing that I want our team to do. So that's kind of how we move with what order to do things. So
that's awesome, and I'm loving to see the experience that you've had. And everything's not perfect, but I think just having that long term, just like, we're going to get this done, we're going to fix it and make it happen, has been one of the biggest reasons of success. On top of what we've mentioned, you can have the best technology in the world, if you don't have the subject matter expertise, you're not going to go anywhere, because now it's just generic. Because general, it's not going to add that much value. It needs to be verticalized into a very specific area, which obviously healthcare has been a very big proponent over the last couple of years of AI and the impact on it right now. We have another question. This is a behemoth of a question, but Gabe, I'll kind of do it from our friend Corey. He works at another behavioral health company. So he said, is your company, is Burrell Behavioral Health doing fee-for-service billing or a variation of a case rate? In Tennessee, to be paid a case rate, we have to meet 2 gates. One is Medicaid eligibility, which is what we're talking about here. And number 2 is attestation. The MCO assigns the patient to the provider. And the second question is, have you had success using the bot with querying payer data? So see if you can answer those questions.
Sure. So we are, we have some small fee for service, but we are majority what we call a PPS, perfected payment rate. So we get a certain rate per client that we see per day. And so it's really interesting with us. We have to get 2 claims to the state of Missouri, the PPS claim itself, and then the service claim that's showing what service was provided, whether it was a therapy visit or community-based service or whatever it is. And so we have low volume. So whatever our rate is, we have 2 claims for that. So, if we have a $30 million receivable, you divide that by a rate, multiply by 2, that's the number of claims I got to get through, as opposed to when I worked at a hospital, you would just go find the 100,000, the $1 million claims and work those and get your receivable to drop. So we have high volume, low amounts, but a high volume of them. And so we have, so that is how we do the billing. And that's why the ordering of guarantors and making sure that the client really has Medicaid, because again, 90% of our claims are going out to the states. So we do that. We personally have not accessed other payer portals at this point. Our security team is just not interested in doing that. And again, it's not the majority of our clientele at this point. I think at some point we probably will go and do that, but we have so much that we could do right now, just keeping it internally. And it's not that the bot doesn't have the capability to do that. We just chose as an organization at this time not to ping the payer portals. It's just not something that we need at this point. The majority of what we need is out on the state. We just pull down a report from the state and we have what we need there. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes sense. In fact, talking about payer portals, Gabe Enz, I mean, um, we are also discussing similar kind of solutions with another nonprofit group. They are based off Oklahoma, so they have OHCA as the portal from where you can check the beneficiaries of Medicaid-based patients. So, I mean, but I get your point. It's all about not having the need at the current moment to go into UHC or Availity and run the insurance eligibility check because the commercial side is not that much. I do see another Q&A. It kind of aligns with the question I had for you, Gabe Enz, which is
Mhm.
about the implementation timelines. I know you have already addressed the implementation timeline for the ordering of guarantors, which was the first process you picked up.
Mhm.
But for the audience, if someone is evaluating OpenBots as maybe one of their top three preferred AI vendors, and at the back of their mind, they're thinking about the implementation timelines because everybody wants solutions, but more importantly, they want a faster solution.
Mhm.
What advice would you give to them in terms of the implementation timelines and also about the readiness and internal alignment?
Yeah, having never done this before, no idea what to expect. And what I would do differently is all our teams in our organization were not completely aligned on this. Revenue cycle was all ready to go. Like, right, we're going to implement, we're going. And then IT's like, well, wait a minute. Security was like, wait a minute. And so we did not have all those people aligned. So any delays that happened were really internally on our side, from the simplest things of making sure that cybersecurity signed off on the whole process, getting the virtual machines, and getting all the logins, all of that sort of stuff took a lot of bandwidth, and a lot of communications from the IT team. And I'd be sitting in on meetings and really understanding like every seventh word that they said. Like, I don't know. So we had a good project manager from our IT side that worked with everyone from OpenBots and was really helpful. And so that was our biggest delays at the beginning, was internally. And so what I found as a leader, I didn't realize what I needed to do was sell it more at the beginning and really make sure that we had buy-in from the EHR team, from the IT team. For them, it was just another project. They get so many projects, right? So we had to really go out and just inform everyone of what it was. I remember having a conversation with someone about the virtual machine, and, well, are you sure you need 3 virtual machines? Like, they cost this much. I'm like, well, they didn't understand the scope of our project. Like, right. Like they actually didn't cost anything compared to the savings that we were getting, but they didn't know. I didn't do a good job of communicating that. So that was the biggest, I think, learning point from me, is that we just had to make sure everyone understood. And even now, to be honest with you, right, the bot, people see the bot has done something with a guarantor and they don't quite understand what the bot's doing, and I'll be in meetings like, well, that bot added that insurance wrong. Like, oh no, the bot doesn't touch those insurances. What you see is the bot was the last person in. Right. And so I've gone, we just had a large meeting with all the presidents of our company and really explained what it was that the bot was doing. And even to my own team, they weren't even sure. So again, I would do a better job of what it is exactly, because we're in the detail of it. We know exactly what it is, but no one else knows what that bot is doing, and really just making sure there's clear communication of what the bot does and what the bot doesn't. And we were laughing in a leadership meeting that we call it our CEO calls it Robert the robot. Robert the robot gets a bad rap. And so it really is about selling the whole organization on why we're doing this. And so, yeah, so they, in the comments, they were laughing about how good thing Robert doesn't have any, doesn't get his feelings hurt. And so yeah, I would be out in front of that more. I kind of got behind the ball on that. And so now we're doing a much better job of communicating that, but just kind of understanding what we're going to need from our supporting teams and why this project is important to the whole organization, not just to the RCM side. I think that would make it as seamless as possible. And then the other aspect from the revenue cycle side is having your subject matter experts and picking which one is going to work with the process engineer. And so there are some folks that are better than others at explaining their process. So I found that it really helped for us to go through the process with the folks first, because by nature they'll skip important steps. And so our process engineer was being really good, realized we went from point A to point E and we missed B, C. And he's like, well, how did I get here? Like, do I have to click this? And so he was really good at it. But we found as we were implementing more and more, we just got faster at it because we knew exactly what questions would be asked. And we had our process down to every click, and that was helpful as well. So.
That's awesome. I love that part on Robert the Robot. He has no
Robert
emotion.
the Robot. Oh my gosh, good thing, because I tell you, yeah, we blame everything on Robert the Robot. So
if he did have emotions though and feelings, you would be his friend. I think that he would.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, definitely.
I love it. We have there's a plethora of more questions, man, coming in. I love it. So these are
right.
genuine questions from just other healthcare leaders in the industry that want to pick your brain, Gabe. So I'll just combine a couple questions into one. And the first half I'll answer. The second half you'll have to answer it, Gabe.
Okay.
Gabe, man. So the question is starts from Jonathan. Are you running on a proprietary platform? Is this a script? I'll answer that part. And the second part is, can you share the previous claim denial rate? You kind of already answered that with a 20% reduction, or the denial rate before the bot implementation and current claim denial rate. And then he asked about monthly claim volumes. You can comment whatever you want on that, Gabe, in a second. The first question around, is this a script? Is this a platform? What is it? So OpenBots is a proprietary healthcare automation platform. The way our CEO breaks it down is like Lego blocks. If you have a generic automation platform or a generic script or generic Python code, you can automate anything with enough time and enough money, but it'll take you a lot of Lego blocks. Maybe it'll take you 10 Lego blocks or 20 Lego blocks. When you have a specific verticalized healthcare automation platform, you're solving the same problems with much less Lego blocks, maybe 2 or 3 Lego blocks. So it's much faster, as Gabe has mentioned. And number 2, you're tracking a lot more things and you've seen it before. So you have the clearinghouse integrations there. You have a lot of the EHR integrations there. You have a lot of the payer aggregators. Someone like this is less related to this automation, but typical eligibility, like with like Waystar and Availity and TriZetto and all of the major players in the industry. It really helps when you've seen those interfaces before, and you can integrate usually via API or any other way. That's the fastest way to do it. And finally, subject matter expertise. When the automation has done something before, and of course, you have to utilize all of the major newer language models, AI that exist. You basically want to have the path of least resistance. Sometimes you're doing a task, you don't need that much complex technology to do it. That's okay. You don't have to do overkill. But then you have other situations where you're dealing with payer rules, or you're dealing with a lot of documentation where you have to use some of that heavy AI to be able to decipher that large amount of healthcare data that previously you needed humans for. So to answer the question in a long-winded way, we use a lot of levels of technology within our platform, depending on what the specific operational process is that is being automated at the time. So second part of that question, Gabe, if you wanted to comment at all on the denial, claim volume, and all that, you can.
Sure. Yes, sorry, I don't have the exact numbers. It went from this percentage to that percentage. I don't have that. I can tell you that, I don't have my claim rates off the top of my head there. So we did see, certainly a reduction in denial, and have been able to move folks over to other tasks like that. And was there a second part of the question? And that was a claim rate. What else was there?
That was good. And there's a follow-up a little bit to that too. So this is actually a good one. So you dealt with this, and people want to know about this around automation maintenance. And basically the question was asked, auditing bot performance, how do you maintain them and all that. So if you don't mind, I mean, you touched upon it a little bit, but sometimes if there's an issue, you know right away, but how did you find that issue? How did you manage that? Because humans aren't perfect, bots aren't either, but the goal is to obviously make sure you have the highest accuracy as possible. So go ahead, Gabe, if you want to kind of give some context on that from another rev cycle leader, if they're looking to implement this kind of thing, what should they expect?
Sure. So just with anyone who's doing anyone, there has to be supervision. And so we simply use our manager of that team. So not only is she managing humans, but she's managing the bot. And so the bot reports in just like a human. When it's done with a task, it sends an email. When it has a problem, it sends an email. So I believe she has a couple people overseeing that. But she ultimately is responsible for that and monitors the tasks. And so things will happen, like our report server will go down, and and so she'll know in the morning, she'll get an email from the bot unable to access the reports. And so just like a human would, say to her, hey, is our report server down today? And so so she gets it fixed, and then she communicates it back when it's ready. And then we constantly have changes. So we're changing our report server completely. We're going to a new report server. And so the bot actually went into the old server, it opened it up, it clicked here, it clicked there. So, actually the report server went down one day and said, oh, it's now in this other area. And I'm like, oh, like I called the IT people and I'm like, our bot is accessing this. So we're going to need to retrain it. And it took less than a week. So we got a hold of OpenBots and says, hey, it's a whole new place. An engineer went in and was able to access the new reports. They reprogrammed, and so we were able to get the report from the new place. So any changes we have, we just let OpenBots know. And then we are constantly implementing. Someone said, how long did it take? Well, we're not stopping, right? So we do this process, then we do this process, and I have other processes in the pipeline. And I think the more we do, the more we want to do, and realize, oh, now we could get it to do this and stuff like that. So it's a constant process. But what I envision our team being is that it will be one or two subject matter experts for each area, supported by a bot, managed by those experts, and they'll be supervising the bot just like it would, because the bot will spit out exceptions for us, and so then someone needs to go in and work that. So they're going to work as a team. And so the bot's doing the heavy lifting, and then they're doing the finesse. They're doing the expertise stuff and the stuff that the bot can't get. So that's kind of how we monitor the bot. Each team is working with its bot and overseeing it.
Excellent. That's an excellent recap. And I think it's helpful to understand, okay, with these phases, we have a lot of value, but there's a lot more value to have because the process is always changing. Medicare, Medicaid payers are always changing. The rules are always changing. So at times you need to have tweaks to make sure that things are up and running, and you need to make sure you're always constantly monitoring what's going on the same way you monitor a team of people. So this is the last question, Gabe. I think we've gone through almost all of the Q&A. So this is my personal last question. I think it'll help all the folks on this call. So Gabe, picture when you were in that seat several months ago or last year, I guess for other healthcare organizations considering AI for eligibility, for the revenue cycle, what advice would you give them based on your experience?
So based on my experience, we did vet several companies. And one of the things that was most helpful to us is we were able to talk to the clients from each of the companies. We got a lot of information. Again, I had no idea what we were even getting into, and it just really helped to be able to talk to someone. They kind of explained the process, and so that was really helpful for us. They were on a different EHR system. I just happened to, we used to work for that EHR company, and so when they were talking about what they had the bot do, I'm like, oh my God, of course you do, right? Like, because we used to tell our clients, well, you're gonna have to manually do that. Like, well, not anymore. So the bot comes in. So, I do think that that was helpful. And I know that there's just things that our EHR system does well, but also, we just need to complement it with, artificial intelligence. And so that was the one thing that was really important to us. the other thing is that we got to understand our process and really understand that we are not out of the box kind of process. Like, right. So there are all kinds of companies out there that do eligibility checking, like all kinds. That's not what we needed. We're not just doing that. So we needed a company that can understand that you're not just opening up something. Because I worked for an EHR company, we talk about out of the box, right? And then you'd open up that box and get them going right away. That was not what we needed. We needed someone that was going to be able to look at our process, understand, and then replicate the process. And so the fact that we were able to find that in OpenBots was really helpful, because, like I said, we've had other vendors in the past, not with AI, but with eligibility and just other kinds of things, and they always fall short because we are quite complicated in our own special way. And so we were able to address our needs that way. And the fact that the bot can now go into our system and update the insurance and update claims, and they're going to be posting payments here and all that sort of stuff. So it just, is constant. But it needs to be able to be specific. And that's exactly what happens here, is that process engineer comes in, looks at the process, and we build the bot in order to do that. So I think that is really helpful to know what your needs are. You're looking something out of the box, or you're needing something a little more specific because of your specific needs. Again, and as I said earlier, very important to, get buy-in from the rest of the organization, and, to make sure that the IT team can do what they need to do and the such. But I just know in revenue cycle, just back in the day, in 1992, 94, 96, it's probably 1996, we went over to ERAs, right? Electronic remittance devices, right? Like, who knew what that was going to be? But man, if you didn't adopt, yeah, here we are, 20, 30, 40 years later. It's developing. So rev cycle has changed. We always talk in our rev cycle leaderships, we're not Kansas anymore. It is definitely changed. And if we don't stay ahead of the curve, we're going to be drugged behind. And this whole, merging with a larger organization, is really pleased that we're ahead of the other side of the organization. We've done that. Now they're looking to us. And so we don't want to be left behind. But RCM revenue cycle as it existed 2 years ago does not exist today. And if we don't start leveraging this artificial intelligence, someone else will, and will be ahead of us. So it's kind of sort of where we're at with that. So it's just the next step forward. No longer are we sending out paper claims, right? So this is just the next step forward. No longer are we going to have, our teams do these repetitive tasks.
Very insightful closing thought. Basically, if a technology is too standardized, at times it can't solve complex issues like the payer sequencing issue and things that genuinely lead to so many of the denials. So at times you need something that's a little bit more robust to handle some of those special circumstances or companies that are a little more special like you all. So Gabe, you're a natural at this. Thank you very much. I mean, I think that this was extremely informative for everyone in the org. I think we have one more question. We'll answer that offline. But Gabe, couldn't thank you enough for this. Ronald, thank you as well for joining. And thank you all that are here. And for anyone who could not join or that wants the recording, we can also distribute that to you all. So thank you all.
All right.